You recording, Adam?
I've been recording.
Oh.
We're waiting on you.
Par for the course, buddy. Par for the course. Adam, we got a guest here today.
Yes, we do.
And I'm really excited about it.
Welcome to the Subpar Podcast.
The Subpar Podcast of Final Descent Outdoors, hosted by Brad and Adam.
Here I am.
We have a guest today.
We do.
This is Paul Powers.
There he is.
Paul, introduce yourself.
Paul Powers grew up in western Oklahoma. I now live in south central Oklahoma. Been friends with Brad for
Since birth.
40 years. If I was 40.
Yeah.
How old are you?
I'm 39.
39 years I've known you.
Yep.
I'm a couple of years older than you.
Yep.
I've only known Paul a few years. Just a little bit. So
You're half the man you were when I first met you. Diet he's been on, man.
That's right, dude. Let's just keep talking about the diet. We're gonna talk about food.
Oh gosh.
Your whole family's here, Paul.
Yeah. Yes.
Like you have, they're all. We have an audience. This is the first time we've ever had a full audience, a crowd,
Live studio audience.
We have a live studio audience. We've got 3 of your kids and your wife's here.
If a camera gets kicked over, I'm afraid it's probably my family's responsible.
Well, it won't be mine because
did you sign the waiver?
The only ones here.
Did you sign the waiver?
I think I did. I think I left it in the pickup.
Well, one thing is kind of funny. So, Paul, you hadn't seen me with my hair growing out. You asked me today, how long are we going with the hair?
Yeah, I like it.
See, you just gave this look just now. Beforehand,
you hesitated.
There was a hesitation.
No, I like it. If I did that, mine is just like just a foofy, I wish to say.
Foofy? Foofy's the word?
Flowing locks.
That's how I would refer to a poodle.
Yeah, it's what it would look like as a poodle. It'd be very similar. I can't pull off what you're pulling off.
So you saw me at a funeral about a month ago.
Yes.
And I walk into the funeral meal. And we haven't seen one another in months. Right?
Right.
Obviously, Paul's one of our pro staffers. He films for the show. We've been buddies a long time. He's been filming for us for like 12 years. But you live a couple hours south of me. We don't see one another all the time. And he saw me at this funeral. I walk in. I'm at a funeral meal before the service, and I'm actually preaching the service. And you go, what did you say?
I'm a member of a country club. I would have swore it was Travis Tritt just walked into the service.
He said that in front of the whole place. He goes, well, I didn't know Travis Tritt was preaching the funeral.
That's what I said. I didn't know Travis Tritt was the got out of the country club and was going to perform the service.
See, the problem is with having this hair this long, and I've never had long hair before, so I don't know what to do. Like in a hat, you just rock it. You know what I mean? Like it's just full mullet, going in the back here. But without a hat on, I don't know what to do with it.
I would rock it if I could pull it off, but I can't do it.
See, that's what everybody says. But every day I wake up, I'm going to go cut it off. But I have somebody be like, no, don't cut it off. And I don't know it's because they're like, man, it looks good.
Saying don't cut it off.
It's like, hey, it looks good, or it's because we want you to look like an idiot.
You think it looks good, Adam?
I'm just trying to live vicariously through him. That's I can't do it, obviously.
In the most non-inappropriate way possible. So, JC, what do you think about the long hair that I'm rocking right now? I'm asking Paul's wife sitting on the couch. I like it. Shoot me straight. Don't lie to me. Huh?
She's on board with it.
You're on board with it?
She likes it.
Do you want me to try to do that?
You think I should go full Morgan Wallace with it? Perm it up in the back? Morgan Wallen? Yeah?
You ought to trim the sides at least. Trim it up and kind of make it even more of a true uptight and then let it flow deep.
I know it is. I know.
You did notice she said she's a high school teacher, not a grown man teacher. So it's the in thing at a high school.
Is this qualifies midlife crisis? Is that what we're referring to?
Well, you bought the pickup, right? The square body. You got the
I did. I bought
You're
growing your hair out.
I bought it. Do you remember my dad? Right before my dad died, my dad, my mom and dad, and Paul's mom and dad were buddies, and there's some great stories there too.
Right.
My mom played softball and traveled with your mom and dad.
Right. My dad coached, and your mom played third base. My mom was the catcher in second base.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And my mom would throw hands.
Oh yeah. Yeah.
How would you describe my mom, Paul?
Strong. I mean, she was strong, opinionated, set in her ways, disciplinarian, respected. And she was a lady that you knew where she stood on things, and you didn't have to imagine what her thoughts were on any specific subject. She was going to shoot you straight, and you were going to act right, or you were going to get in trouble.
And if you stumbled into her in an alley,
you were probably going to get beat up.
You're probably going to get beat up. My mom was in. I know that my mom was in 2 fist fights, and one was with a man, and my mom won both of them. I saw it. Those are things that I saw. But me and Paul, we grew up together, and one of my favorite memories growing up with you, Paul, was really I probably fell in love. Part of the reason I fell in love with OU football is because it felt like we watched a lot of OU football together.
Yeah.
And at times, maybe in the 80s when OU was really stinking good, 85, 86, 87, 88, in that time frame, when games would get out of control, me and you go play football in the hallway.
Yep, we did it a lot.
All right, we do that a bunch. And we go out, and I remember specifically one time we're playing football in the hallway at your house.
Oh, yeah, I remember.
And it was full-blown tackle.
Yeah.
I think, and well, how old are you?
I'm 41.
41, so you're 2 years older than me. So I was trying to tackle a kid who was 2 years older than me.
Yeah.
And so you kind of prepped me for my collegiate days of college football. At a young age, I was beginning to get prepped for it. Did you know that Sam Bradford touched Adam's butt every day?
Every day.
Every day?
Every day.
He's a backup center.
I was a backup center, so every day in practice they'd rotate through, like warm-ups.
Yeah.
Because I played defense, but I was backup center every day.
Do some snapping.
Well, Sam would wipe up and slap him on a cheek and get underneath. And
I was the only one he gave the right cheek tap to,
Grip.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Special relationship.
Yep.
Yeah.
Anyway, the specific time that I specifically remember this is that we would kick off to one another, and you'd get one end of the hallway and the other, and we'd run, you'd tackle one another, and then you'd, get 4 downs so you make a touchdown.
Yeah, long, narrow hallway, too.
It's a
hallway.
It's a hallway, right? There's no juking. It's just running one another over.
It was Oklahoma drill.
It was Oklahoma drill with no pads. I kicked off to Paul, and I hit the light fixture in the hallway. You remember that?
Oh, yeah.
That light fixture fell onto the ground and shattered.
Yeah.
And the next sound is one of the most recognizable sounds to any child, the recliner pop.
Wham.
You remember that recliner? When your dad's kicked back in the recliner and he pulls it and it's fast.
Before it was all electric.
Oh yeah.
It's not as threatening now.
Manual.
I'm gonna get you.
Yeah. Give me a second.
I'll see you in a second. I'm gonna get you.
Yeah, it was quick. And those old recliners had that spring in them, so it sprung them forward, and so it kind of threw them out.
It's like hitting the eject button.
And so here comes Big John down the hallway, and you are thinking Brad is dead. What were you thinking in that moment?
I knew we were in a tough spot because there was nowhere to get out. He had the only exit covered. And we were in trouble.
Yeah.
I mean, I thought you were in trouble more than I was because I didn't kick it. I was receiving the punt or the kickoff. I wasn't kicking.
Right.
So I was anxiously waiting to see how bad you were going to have it.
And I kind of huddled, because I think both of our parents probably had that policy of if my kid gets out of line, beat them.
Oh, yeah.
My parents had the right to beat you.
Oh, yeah.
Your parents had the right to beat me.
Without question.
And I remember I got down in a ball. I look back and I see John coming down the hallway, moving fast, as fast as Big John moves. And I'm in a ball thinking, this is it. I'm about to get whooped up on. And Big John jumps over me.
Yeah.
And you immediately start throwing me under the bus. You're like, it wasn't me. It was Brad. Brad did it.
That's self-preservation at this point.
And it was as if
dog rolled at him.
It was as if John had gone completely deaf. He didn't care.
He wasn't deaf. He had that full-blown rage where all you see is red and a target.
Because let's honestly probably, Paul, back up. He probably said to us multiple times, hey, you boys, settle down.
The hall,
yeah, settle down.
There's no doubt.
And he jumps over me. You start throwing me under the bus. Be like, it was Brad. It was Brad. And he grabs you, pulls you into your room. And now I'm in the hallway knowing that I did it.
Yeah.
And the beating that took place. I mean, it was.
I think I went on injured reserve after that.
The game was over because it was just like.
Yeah,
and you're like, ah!
I was on the injured reserve list for a few weeks after that.
A heck of a whooping.
Yeah, we were more cheerleaders after that for a week or two.
Yeah, no doubt about it. No
we
doubt
came
about
back
it.
though. We came back strong. You remember that time when we were down below the house and the new house? We were down the road and we were throwing rocks at the old barn that had the beehive in the side of the barn.
Oh my gosh, I've totally forgot about that.
So we were throwing rocks at this old barn. This old shed has these. You can see the bees. I mean, they're actively flying around it. You know, typically
Yeah.
honeybees aren't that aggressive. I guess if you throw enough rocks at them, they become
I was
aggressive.
gonna say how much
Yeah.
patience is any creature gonna have?
We threw enough rocks at them that they became aggressive, and we were about 200 yards from my main house, but down the hill. So whenever the bees decided to come out of their nest and their hive and encourage us to quit throwing rocks at them, it was a race up the hill. I mean, we looked like we had
Encourage you
chicken
to
pox before we got up the hill.
Oh, bro.
Dude, they were stinging and biting. We were undressing and running and jerking your shirt off. And
And
ran on the porch and pulled your shorts down.
and the old man recipe for getting rid of bee stings and making them stop is put gasoline on it.
Ugh, it was awful.
You know, whatever you do to make it. Have you never heard that?
No.
My grandpa would get stung by a bee, Ray,
Yeah.
and he'd put gasoline on it, and it'll immediately make it stop stinging.
I'll never forget it. We got
I'm saying it's a good healthy choice.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Just how they did it.
It's just what they did.
I will say this. I remember we got them finally whipped off of us, and when we got it, we were all going to be okay, and we had, 4 or 5 stings each. Thought we were going to be in a good shape, and when we had thrown my shirt outside, well, we calmed down, and then we were going to go out in the yard and play some football. And I grabbed the shirt off the front porch, put it back on. I'll be darned if there wasn't another bee still in the shirt. Got
Oh,
me
I
again.
got you
Yeah,
again.
he's sitting there waiting on me.
Hey, do you remember that time I buried that hook in the back of your
I do
head?
remember that, too. That was a MEPS number 3 spinner.
Wait. What? Buried a hook.
I buried a hook in the back
Okay,
of his
just
head.
wanted to make sure that
It wasn't my fault. It
was
was
clearly
100%.
said.
Paul, you got to know
we're getting
when you
real. We're getting real colloquial in our accents here. We're
Buried.
remember that time I buried a hook in your head? Starting to sound like Gator Reggie
We
over
start
here.
getting a little bit. We got a little more too much Roger Mills County in
Yeah.
the room
We
right
do got
now.
some-
He's a Roger Mills County boy. I'm a Roger Mills County boy.
Yeah.
And I mean, you're close, JC. What I mean, you're close enough to.
She's probably got more accent than we do.
Yeah. Are you Wheeler County? Is what,
No, they were Hemp Hill
are
County.
you
wasn't
Hemp Hill County?
it? Hemp Hill County.
Hemp Hill County, Texas, just across the line from Roger Mills.
No, she was Wheeler County because the county line was north of her house. I drove down that back and forth to see her back when we were young.
Yeah. Yeah.
Years
JC
ago.
grew up just down the road from a town that's smaller than Raiden.
Yeah, yeah. She had 6 kids in her high school graduating class. Had a total of 6 kids.
I had 6 kids in my kindergarten class at Raiden.
I graduated 13, and that was the second biggest class in the school at the time.
Me and Tommy Music were the only 2 boys in my class when I
had
started
4 or 5
school.
boys. I graduated Raiden with 13 in my high school graduating class, and I went to OU my first day at OU. Philosophy 1013 had 650 kids in the lecture hall. Double the town population of where I grew up.
Double. That's
Raiden.
almost triple.
Yeah, Raiden maybe 300 people, maybe 350 people, maybe.
Yeah.
It was fun though.
If you draw a circle 15 miles around it,
Yeah, exactly.
pull it all in.
Yeah, there sure wasn't 300 in town.
Ask Adam top 5 hamburger he's ever had.
Are you going to ask me?
Top 5 hamburger you ever had?
The Hilltop's top 5 hamburger I've ever had. It's a
Solid.
excellent cheeseburger.
Regular burger, or did you go with the Tiger Burger?
I wasn't brave enough.
The Tiger Burger's double
Well,
meter.
I think at the time, like, we had just gotten done shooting, and when you got that, there's either Food Rampage after we've got done
Right.
working, or it's I need to take it easy here.
I know. I got 4 of them
think-
right over there looking at
didn't-
me.
Was that the day that we hadn't had any water, and we went in there and chugged so much water, and then later at Larry's house, you blew your guts?
I threw up,
You threw up everywhere because you're dehydrated.
which isn't uncommon for me to puke.
No.
Like I just randomly throw up.
No,
Anyway.
it's
I
not
don't do
uncommon.
smells. I can't do smells.
It's beef
Oh.
jerky or something.
The teriyaki beef jerky.
Teriyaki beef
Yeah, that's a
jerky,
thing.
and apparently 4 gallons of water and a cheeseburger will do it to you.
You know, the other most violent, speaking of throw up, the most violent throw up that I'd ever heard. Remember when we went to Pike County, Illinois, the Golden Triangle, back in the
Mhm.
early years?
Oh man, early years
and my
of
boy
filming.
Demo,
David Emmons.
David Emmons. That poor kid was sick.
I remember that.
We were in
he
a,
got sick and
yeah.
didn't come. We brought him along to film.
He was my film guy. Yeah, we'd already found those bucks, and we were headed to the ATM to make a withdrawal. We were going to the ATM, baby, and get up about prime time to go hunting. And poor Demo is in the bathroom in our little quad there where we were sleeping, sick.
Puking his guts
grown
up.
man throwing up too, boy. I
You
felt
remember?
awful
You
for
remember
him.
when it rained that whole trip?
Whole trip.
And remember when he tripped down the side of that bank, but
Ugh.
he his number one goal was protecting the camera.
Yeah.
And he face planted. He didn't even use his hands to catch himself.
Looked like he'd been in mud wrestling for a week.
He fell. He did.
He just given up that much.
Yeah, he wouldn't do any. He was trying to keep all the camera gear, so he like held on to it, and so he fell face first into the sand.
Rain, boy.
Pouring rain
Just
on the bank of this creek.
Just went full face
First into it, and he
slid
just
right on down.
You could see his face. It looked like what was the deals that you could push your face into or your hand into, and it would like leave the perfect indention. You know what I'm talking about? You ever seen one of those?
I can't remember what it's called, but I know what you're talking about.
His face was like a perfect indention on the ground.
Train's not coming through your
Oh,
house,
hey,
is it?
that's
our sponsor.
That's
that's Santa Fe. Yeah, I've watched this deal. Santa Fe Railroad.
This section is brought to you by BNSF. So I appreciate you.
David, that I'll never forget. I still to this day, and we text back and forth occasionally. Backstrap and garlic butter, baby.
Oh yeah, we say shoot him in the throat patch.
Throat patching.
Shoot him in the throat patch.
We saw a buck up there.
That's
one
what I was
night.
gonna say. Talk about that buck that you saw. Would you
probably the biggest whitetail buck I've ever seen on the hoof? Was up there in the bar ditch. We were on our way home one night from hunting,
and they don't have much of a bar ditch, by the way. I mean, they use every inch. You're talking like 5 foot of bar ditch.
Yeah, and the roads are real. The road was a little curvy, back road, and we had been up to this farm hunting, and we were on our way back to the lodge.
And it rained a bunch, and so part of our
yeah.
issue was the weather was bad, but they hadn't harvested all the corn because it was so
too
wet
muddy.
in the fields.
Yeah, so muddy. And we turned a curve, and a buck is standing in the bar ditch, or right beside the road. That is as big any buck as I've ever seen. I'll never forget it. He was probably, these stories always get exaggerated, but I've seen a lot of deer in my day. He's 22 wide, double drops,
that
6, 7
perfect.
inch. Yeah, double drops on 6-7 inch drops on each side, and just massive, huge buck. And I'll never forget, we got shut down and backed up even with him. And as he turned to go down the corn row, their standing corn, he went down into the corn, and he was going down the corn. 2 rows of corn on either side of him was getting knocked down as he was running. Just unbelievable. Biggest whitetail deer I've ever seen.
And he was, and David was going to shoot him in the throat patch.
Emmons, not to self-incriminate ourselves, but Emmons and I discussed after that we should have throat patched him. We had a 22 behind the seat. We were bow hunting, of course. We were going to throat patch him, and we already said we could have went back to the lodge, say we had a family emergency, go back, get him out of the bar ditch, and head to Oklahoma in the middle of the night and check him in online.
You wouldn't have done that.
We wouldn't have done that.
I know it.
Because he turned and ran too fast.
Speaking of that, hey, tell us about the time you were in the vehicle when the dummy deer got shot.
I did that. Yeah, I've seen that.
How old were you?
Oh, I was probably, probably my dad had his hip replaced in 1989, so I was probably 9.
He's probably 9 years old.
Yep.
Okay.
Used to, we didn't always hunt as legitimate as we hunt now.
But you're a little kid. I mean, you're a little kid. You're just
but
riding around.
Even my family and nobody in Western Oklahoma, used to. There was no such thing.
I
as
didn't know
feeder.
they made. I'll be honest. I didn't know they made a tree stand.
Yeah, feeders and box blinds.
I was about 16 years old.
Yeah, we did a lot of stuff that probably isn't how you're supposed to do it, especially now. But it wasn't us just doing it. Everybody did it. We were road hunting, and I'll never forget it. My dad had just had a hip replacement, so he couldn't get out hardly anyway. He was on crutches, and we pull over top a little peak and look down there in the sagebrush draw, and there's a buck and a doe standing, head to head, and the doe's looking over her shoulder, and the buck's just quartering to us, just a giant 10-pointer, and your uncle was with us. They're old hunting buddies, and my dad let him have it before the pickup quit rolling. Boom! Nothing happened. And he doesn't recall saying this, but I was sitting there. He said, "Is that dummy?" I said, "I think so." Kaboom!
He shot him again.
And he didn't move the second time either.
That's when he knew.
That's when we knew.
That's when you knew.
That's when they come out of the bar ditch and said, "You guys need to go on down the road. Somebody will be waiting on you." They were.
Yeah.
I was a little boy.
Were you scared?
Yeah. I mean, it was scary. But my mom.
Oh,
so
gosh. Oh, gosh.
Kay Powers. So that part wasn't as scary as when we got home.
And Kay was waiting
And
on
Big John had to go in and tell my mom that what had happened. That was
there's
way
gonna
scarier.
there's going to be a check that I have to write.
That's way scarier. Way scarier.
Way scarier to deal with Kay.
Yeah. I'll never forget. I was a little boy. I'll never forget. Walked in and he's like, "You probably ought to stay out here." And I sat on the front porch, and he walked in, and they went he took her to the bedroom, said, "We need to talk. I need to tell you something." They went in the bedroom. Woo. That's bad.
That's a bad deal.
That'd have been in early, mid-80s, probably mid-late 80s. I was probably 8 or 9 years old.
Oh.
Crazy deal.
So back to that
Big
time,
buck, though.
Back to that time I hooked you in the back of the head fishing.
Yeah, that was a amateur hour.
So
That's what happens. You go hunting, fishing with an amateur hour, Adam.
So Adam,
Yeah.
it was we're fishing a lake, Pauline's Lake. That's what we always call it. His grandma's lake. And I didn't know Paul walked behind me, and I reared back that old Zebco 33. What was that? What was the spinner?
It was a MEP number 3.
MEP number 3. And I mean, I was trying. We had a little bit of a moss. Patch out in front of us, and I was trying to get over it.
He's trying to throw out in the middle of the pond.
Yeah, he's trying to throw it to
They're going 100 yards with it. Yeah.
I was trying to throw it to Durham, Oklahoma. Yeah. I'm going further than that. I was going to roll, son.
Yeah.
And I reared back, and and I mean, Paul was walking behind me, and I buried that sucker in the back of his skull.
Did you come off the ground?
No, here's the bad part, Adam. He did it, and it.
Well, I thought I caught a limb.
So he's sitting there. You
I had to set it a time or two.
Oh yeah,
it wasn't just a hit. I'm sorry, Paul.
Bone. It's in the bone.
Paul, my rod won't work.
Yanking and cranking.
I mean, it buried it to the hub.
I did.
The bend of the hook. The only benefit was there wasn't a benefit at this point. But my parents were pulling in, and we were just us. We were little boys down there fishing by ourselves, and they're pulling into the pasture at this time, and Brad goes to yelling, screaming, "I hooked Paul! I hooked Paul!" And my dad basically wades across the neck of the lake, running over there. He thought something was bad had happened.
I said, I got him in the head.
Yeah,
I said he's got a hook in his head. He gets over. It was bleeding. Head injury, any little thing.
Oh, yeah. It just bleeds like a sieve.
He gets over, and just like any good Western Oklahoma cowboy, had him a pair of pliers in his pocket. He just gets it and pops it out.
Oh, God. Makes me
fishing.
Makes me hurt.
It's good stuff. But, I mean, is it the person casting or the person that's walking behind that's
No.
Who is it?
It's the person that casting.
No.
Because he ain't got eyes in the back of his head.
You gotta be aware of your surroundings.
I've always played
the role. You gotta be aware of your surroundings.
That's the most Democrat thing I've heard ever said on this podcast. You're responsible for me.
Yeah.
What are you talking about?
You got to be aware of your surroundings.
Yeah, exactly, Paul. Exactly. You got to be aware of your surroundings, Paul. You can't walk behind me.
I wasn't the one with the weapon. I fish with two 7-year-olds and a 10-year-old all the time. I've never hooked any of them in the head.
Yeah,
because I'm a responsible fisherman.
Because y'all ain't the same height.
You're throwing over the top of them. That's
yeah, man. You just missed them because you're throwing over the top of them.
I have been almost hooked by the 7-year-old though.
Oh,
so his responsibility level is similar to what the guy that hooked me.
Because I was 7 at the time, Paul. We were the same age.
We were both 7. There's no doubt.
Yeah. No, that's exactly.
We just got to agree that it's the thrower's fault where the ball ends up. It's not the catcher, right?
Debatable.
It's not. I mean, if I'm standing,
you weren't catching. You were just a guy running through the field of play.
Yeah, I'm an innocent bystander.
You're in the field of play. You come to play. You better play.
Yeah, I'm walking across the field and get beamed in the side of the head. That's not the guy walking across the field's fault. It's the guy that threw the ball.
You're the bird with Randy Johnson here in this situation, right?
It really kind of was.
I'm the bird. I just mind my own business.
Yeah, I threw the heater. So, Paul, tell me about the moment that I called you and said, "Hey, man, you want to film for Final Sense?" Probably 12 years ago.
Yeah, it's weird. I don't know why I remember this day, but I do. It was on a Sunday morning before church. You called, and I was laying in bed watching hunting shows on a Sunday morning, and you called, and this is probably before I even had kids. And the first thing you said was, "I need some help," and I knew that in the sound of your voice that it wasn't bad. I mean, I knew you weren't in trouble. I was like, "What's up, man?" You said, "Man, I started this hunting show," and I knew you'd been doing it. I mean, when you started down in Durant and stuff, and with your church and the youth group, I knew you'd done it, and Clayton and those guys. And I remember you saying, "I need some help." I'm like, "Well, whatever you do, I'll help you. However I can help you, just let me know." And you said, "I just need footage. I need deer footage. I need some footage of deer. This deal's taking off and getting a little bigger than what I was ready for." And we were already, me and my guys and my dad were already videoing deer hunts on our little handy cams with the little disc and stuff. And you just said, I just need some footage. And I'm like, "Man, I'll do whatever." And you said, "You want to be a pro staffer?" I'm like, "What does that mean?"
I didn't know what it meant either.
Yeah, what is Brad talking about, a pro staffer?
I mean,
and
I just knew some terminology.
Yeah, and I didn't know what that meant at the time, and I was indifferent. I said, "I'll help you any way I can." You obviously do all the work from the media side of it and the political side of it and all of that stuff, and I just hunt. So it's my whole deal with Final Ascent all along is I probably don't help enough on all the sponsor side. And
I agree 100%.
The business side.
I agree 100%.
But Adam, when it comes to footage, I typically have some footage.
You
Most
do.
occasions I can get footage. So that's kind of what I signed up for all along.
No,
to provide footage.
and that's the reason I asked you to do it was because, first off, you're passionate about hunting. You're passionate about hunting whitetail, and the first deer that I remember that was a legend of Western Oklahoma was 34.
34. Yep.
There's a buck called 34. He's a huge 7-pointer that got seen a bunch of times by people.
Shot at a bunch of times.
By people shooting at him from the road.
Yeah. Under light.
Under light.
The guy told me
lightning.
shooting at me under the light.
I mean, and you killed that sucker.
Yeah, that was
legitimately killed him.
Yeah, that was kind of like OD. That was a 2 or 3 year deal. First time I ever shot at that buck would have been in, I don't even remember what year I killed him. 2002 probably. 3 years before that, my dad rattled him in one afternoon in a locust grove. We were sitting on the ground and he rattled him in.
In the kill zone?
No, we were right over the hill from the kill zone. We were on the west locust grove.
Okay.
Right a quarter of a mile west. We went in there to hunt, and Big John said, I'll take the horns and rattle. I said, oh, whatever. We get there, and he's sitting in a blue sweatshirt and overalls, in a big old blue sweatshirt. And if you know my dad, we call him Big John. He's a lot lighter now than he used to be, but he used to be, 275, 280 pounds, at 5'6", pretty big guy, little round mound to rebound. And he was, and I get up under the cedar tree. I get up under the cedar tree to set up, and we're bow hunting, just like how I've always done it. And I'm up in the back of the cedar tree, and he says, I'll get out here north of you. And he said, if nothing's happening, I'll rattle a little bit. I said, all right, sounds good. I sit down and get up under this cedar tree, and I'm tucked back in there, and I look, and he's out there, looks like a Ford pickup sitting in that locust grove. Like, this ain't going to work. Every deer in the county's going to see him. And we sit there a little bit, and he looks over at me, and he gives me the nod. He's, I'm going to start rattling. I said, okay. And he starts rattling, and about, minute and a half, probably a minute into the deal, he starts pointing. And I look, and there's a buck coming in, a nice little 8-pointer's coming in from the north side, and he's walking right at him. And I'm like, well, he's never going to get to me. Behind him is a little better buck. And I'm like, they're never going to get to me because they got to get across him. So I'm looking to my left, and these 2 bucks are coming, and I look to my right, and I'll never forget it. It's like yesterday. This really good buck's coming, really tall tined. He's pretty, but I could tell he's just a 7-pointer, but he's a big 7-pointer. He comes in. These bucks literally walk right up to my dad. I shift my angle to the 34, get set up. He walks right in there. I've got an old wooden Browning bow. It had to be longer than 2002. Anyway, I've been hunting a couple of years with a bow. I have a wooden bow and some old Easton XX78 arrows, aluminum arrows with a, nap broadhead on it probably. But anyway, I rear back, and there's some grass, and there's some grass between me and him, and I tell myself, don't shoot in that grass, don't shoot in the grass. And I let it go right over the top of him, about 2 inches over the top of his back. He turns, he runs out, turns on and comes back. I almost get a second shot at him, but he goes on, and that's the first time I'd ever seen that deer, and that's back before trail cameras. We didn't know anything about trail cameras. Well, the next year, I see him again. He's gotten bigger. He's still just a 7-pointer. The next year, he's gotten big. All of a sudden, he's getting big, and he's now a legend. And I said, that's that same buck we missed, and I said, I'm going to kill him. I go north Ryan one day, in the kill zone, going north Ryan, and I had a little bit of a north wind, and I was north of Ryan, and he was south of me, and we had set it up that way to where if the buck comes in and he sees you, he may come to me, and if he sees me, he may go to you. Well, I got a wind of one. If you hunt enough, a rutting buck, you can smell him. I smelled him coming, and I knew there was a buck coming from the north because I could wind him. He come, and he was right over the ridge from me, and I could see him coming, but I knew Ryan couldn't. There was a little rise. He got by me about 45 yards, and he come to Ryan, and he comes up on that hump. And Ryan and him, when Ryan sees him, they just freeze. They go
like
eye
Ryan,
to eye.
is that my Ryan?
Yeah, you're Ryan.
Ryan Parman?
Yeah, they're eye to eye looking at each other.
I didn't know that.
And he freezes.
I haven't even heard this story. This involves my family. I don't even know about it.
And Ryan tries to get on him, and he flutters, and the buck just takes 2 big bounces back. When he does, he turns back and looks back at Ryan. Well, I'm sitting there at full draw at this point. I got you now, you son of a gun. Right over the top of him again. So the second time in 3 years, I shot right over the top of this buck with a bow. Now he becomes a legend. Late in that year, everybody's seen him. Some more of your family tried him at night a time or two under a light. They told me about. We won't incriminate those family.
All right.
They're good people.
Okay.
But anyway, so then
I'm just going to let you know that gene didn't carry on.
Yeah,
All
to
right.
you. Yeah, this is kind of distant family of yours.
Okay.
The next year, I'd been down to see her in August in Elk City, and I was on my way home one night, and this is August, and I drove by there, and it's not on the main road. I just drove by that way. And he's standing in the bar ditch, and I see him in a bar ditch in the headlights, and it was him. I go to my house, get Big John. We go back out there. He walks down the bar ditch beside the pickup and was bigger than ever.
Wow.
I'm like, man, this is happening.
Was he wearing his blueberry outfit again?
Yeah, should have been. Should have been. So we get to season, and I'm in college, and I'm working at OU, so I don't get to hunt as much and whatever. Come back over Thanksgiving and over Thanksgiving week and with a rifle, and I go in there one morning, and it's cold and it's frosty and there's ice on the ground, and I lay on the dam in the west draw, lay up on that dam and watching, and there's a big 10-pointer down there in the bottom, and I'd seen him early.
Yeah.
And I'd let him go, and he went up in the trees to the west locust grove, and I called my dad. I said, hey, there's a big 10-pointer in here, and he said, if he comes in there, you ought to try him. I said, you might as well try him and see if you can get him. I knew he'd come back into the draw, and I'm watching, and he does, and I'm watching this big 10-pointer in the scope, and I look to the right, and a doe comes out of the tree row from the east. The doe comes out of that tree row right in that plum thicket, right there in that bottom. I'll never forget it. It was all iced over, and everything was white, and the sun was just coming up, and it was frosty. And I thought, you know what, maybe he's behind, that 34 will be with her. And it's like it's like a dream. He walks out behind her and picks his head up and looks around and looks in that bottom, and he's whoo. And that's him. And I settled in with the rifle and got him down and made a good shot and called my dad and the whole bit. And he scored like 151, 152 as a 7-pointer. Yeah, he was awesome.
How wide is he?
He's like 21 and a half. But his main beams are like 23, 24-inch main beams.
Right, and he's just long and lanky.
Yeah, he's just awesome. And he was a 7-pointer all along. You know, the year before, he had some kickers. I found his sheds out there from the 2 seasons before. A guy had his sheds laying out there on the front of a camper.
Oh, I remember this story.
I went by there and tried to buy them, and he wouldn't sell them to me.
Which is illegal, by the way. You can't buy sheds.
You can't?
No, you can't buy
just
sheds.
put on the list.
Well, the guy didn't sell them to you. He wouldn't sell them to you.
I already wrote
just
it
go ahead and
down.
chalk that down. I self-incriminate myself.
You can't do that in the state of Oklahoma. But the guy knew that. That's why he didn't sell them to you,
guy
because he
wouldn't sell
thought you were going to.
I should have stole them. Is that illegal to steal them?
No.
So I could have snuck out there and
The
stole
word
them.
steal is not a crime.
Those sheds were in their native environment, sitting on the porch of that camper.
Yeah. I could
Yeah.
just
You
pick
just
them up.
found the sheds.
Yeah. Anyway, I didn't get that set, but the year before I killed him, I did get that set of sheds. It cost me Bob Stoops autographed football. I don't consider that's buying. That's
No,
not
that's
buying.
trade.
That's trading.
Bartering.
Bartering.
Totally different.
Bartering's
Bartering's
legal.
different, yeah.
So I bartered for him, and then Big Jeff, the late great Big Jeff, found his left side, and our other neighbor found his right side, and I got him a Bob Stoops autographed football to get his right side.
It was worth it, wasn't it?
Mm-hmm.
Totally
I still
worth
got those sheds in my office. I've got one set of sheds in my office, my actual work office, and it's that set.
That's incredible.
And that buck's still the only buck that is actively in my living room. My main living room, he's the only one there.
Because that was your first obsession.
That was the first buck that I
Kind
really
of obsessed over.
Yeah. And that was still before the trail camera
Era,
yeah.
which made it even worse.
Yeah.
Here's the deal. Your family's here, and they're starving to death.
Y'all hungry?
Everybody's hungry.
Autumn's hungry.
Oh, there was a water.
And her teeth hurt. She got
She got
braces
today.
today.
Your dog got braces
Yeah.
today.
She's a sweetheart.
Anyway, Paul, there's so we just scratched the surface on stories today, did we not?
We could tell a lot of stories.
We're 30 minutes in, and we could totally
Yeah.
we just scratched the surface on stories.
I'm just kind of sitting here listening. Every now and then it cuts to me, and I'm sitting here looking at the screen because I'm just watching.
I know. I love it. You got just kids in the
Yeah.
background, like the
There you
whole
go.
crew's here. We got an audience.
There you go.
It's awesome. Hey, there's Autumn. Let's see those braces, girl. Let me see those. Oh man, your parents are so proud. They paid so much money for those today.
Isn't that awesome?
It's beautiful.
She's a cute kid. Looks just like her daddy.
Oh my gosh. Oh my gosh.
There's little Trevor. He's my little ball player.
So you got twins.
Yeah, twin boys. They
twin
look
boys.
nothing alike. Trevor and Jackson.
Trevor and Jackson.
They look nothing alike. Act nothing alike. Jackson's my hunter. Quit. Jax.
It's all good.
You're
So-
cute too, buddy.
You're handsome.
You're handsomer.
Handsomer. Anyway, I know you guys are going to eat. You guys have been filming interviews with us today. I would love for you to be able to come back and sit, and we could probably do about 10 podcasts of
We probably
stories,
could.
because I want to dive into OD. I want to talk. What's the 196?
59.
59. All right.
Yeah.
You've killed multiple Boone and Crockett bucks sitting on the ground. And I just feel like those stories need to be told, and people will want to hear that, and how you consistently kill big deer. Because we joke about how you could go put a tree stand on a light pole in the Walmart parking lot and kill a 170-inch deer. It feels that way because you just asked about, hey, like all my other deer, like Paul's like, I wouldn't mount that one. I wouldn't have mounted that one. Did you know that's the first deer ever killed on Final Descent Outdoors right there?
That's old double brow time,
yeah,
or
that
double main beam
Justin
from
James told me, says if you miss
Western
him, you'll
Oklahoma.
never forgive yourself.
That's a old out there at the lake. Buck,
Yeah,
wasn't it?
yeah, it's out there at the lake. But there was one deer that was like, well, where'd that deer come from? Well, it came about 30 miles from your house, where all your big deer come from.
Yeah, that's a Western Oklahoma buck, isn't it?
Well, that's a Western Texas buck.
Okay,
But
Miller
yeah,
Ranch?
he looks like it. Don't they? They both kind of look Western Oklahoma because it's very similar. Yeah. Anyway, I want you to come back, and I want your wife to come back, and I want her to talk too. JC, will you be on our podcast someday? Sure. I would love for you to do that because you have a great story about how she got started in hunting through the crazy obsession. I want you to be in it too. Can you just have? We'll just have them all come in, the whole crew. We'll just have the Paul Powers.
Just zoom the whole crew.
Just
Jax is
zoom
going
them
to
all
get.
in.
Jax is going to get Skittles this year. He'll have to be. He's
got
a big
buck
star
he's
of the
chasing
show.
named Skittles, and
he's got a big buck. He's a
go
big
to
buck
go to
too.
you there, Adam. You got some good dance action happening behind you. Autumn, who's going to be? Who's your buck? Step into his microphone right there. What's the buck you're after?
Floppy.
His name's Floppy.
Hey,
Oh,
tell
Flop
Brad
Flop.
what's cool about Floppy this year. About old Flop Flop.
Get in that mic and tell us what's
He's
cool
a
about him.
unicorn.
He is a unicorn buck. He's got one coming right between his eyes.
Does he really?
Yeah, right out of his forehead.
Man,
It's about 5 or 6 inches long. It's almost forks, but his brow tine's flopped to the side, and he's a big mature deer. But he does have one coming right out of his forehead.
that's awesome.
Yeah.
I know you're going to take your family to dinner. Thank you guys so much for coming and hanging out with us in the midst of our craziness of life. You guys got 3 kids. I got 4 kids. Our kids are close. You got 2 7-year-old boys. I got a 7-year-old. You got a 10-year-old daughter. I got a 10-year-old daughter. So anyway, we need to do this more often. Paul, thanks for coming on.
Enjoy.
Please come back and do this again because honestly, we could sit and just tell stories.
Yeah, we got a bunch of deer stories we could tell.
And we need to do it.
It's been fun.
It has been fun. Thanks so much for coming on today.
Appreciate it.
All right, so that was a lot of fun. I really wish Paul could have stuck around longer because he kind of was given an ultimatum.
Yeah, I think we exhausted the clock.
We had
The shot clock had expired.
well, they hadn't eaten.
I know that was the shot clock.
They hadn't eaten in about 8 hours.
Yeah.
And we're talking about with little kids too.
Yeah.
But we kind of begged his wife because he shot interviews today for multiple episodes that he's a part of. And so he, anyway, so we ended up saying, hey, you want to stick around and do a podcast? And he kind of looked at JC and she was like,
Yeah, she
whatever
gave
you want to do. I mean,
the redundant,
oh, you could tell, bro. Like it was.
We probably should thank JC more than we should thank Paul for the activities.
Yeah, but you know
of
what?
the day.
Paul has to come back.
Oh,
And
that's solid gold stuff there.
Paul has to come back because we didn't even scratch the surface today of the level of things that we could possibly talk about.
Oh, yeah.
You know, not even scratch the surface. Adam, can we talk about how we didn't mean to match today?
Yeah. I mean, it happens. I mean, it's bound to happen monthly.
Yeah, because our amount of clothing we rotate through isn't that big.
It's not, and the wardrobe is not diverse.
Mm-mm.
No, the odds are ever in our favor that we will be.
How much longer, Adam, until you feel like you're going in your weight loss journey here before you got to start buying new clothes?
I'm there.
Are you? You're
Yeah,
on the last loop of your belt.
Well, I showed you a minute ago. Like my belt is on the last loop, and I can still I can pull my shorts off right now
with them buttoned,
with them
zipped,
buttoned,
and with the
zipped,
belt
and the belt on.
Yeah.
And they're falling off my butt all the time. And
If you saw a stroller rolling into the street about 40 yards in front of you into traffic and you had to sprint,
pants are off.
Are you losing your pants?
Pants off, dance off. Here we go.
You're going to lose your pants, aren't you?
Oh, yeah. I'm doing my skibbies running out there.
And then what if you then you're going to get charged with like.
Then you're like a sex offender at that point, right?
Yeah. You know, you're pushing, you saved a stroller, but you're in your underwear.
You are in your
underwear.
underwear.
You're going to get registered.
You are registered. Congratulations.
You're going to be on a list somewhere.
The good thing is that out where I live, I'm far enough away from everybody no matter what happens, so it's
the
okay.
old phallus hole.
The old phallus hole.
Yeah.
The old phallus hole. The old phallus hole's about to get fiber internet.
I'll believe it when I see it.
They're running the lines today.
There's a hard drive you can't leave here without because there's footage on it that took about 35, 40 minutes for me to be able to download. It's a lot of footage. I mean, gigs and gigs and gigs. Adam, when you set to download it off Dropbox on your current internet, how long did it say?
8
8 minutes?
no
8 hours?
no
8
days.
It said it was going to take 8 days for it to download.
8 days to download.
That's not good. It's quality.
It is really
It's not good
hard.
service.
It is really hard to be a video producer in the Phallus Hall.
We talked about this beforehand.
We did, and I told, admittedly so. I said this is going to be the biggest challenge for
because
moving
you
out.
left great internet
I left fiber, gigabit fiber.
in Oklahoma City to move to the middle of nowhere.
So just the other day,
to the country, gonna eat a lot of peaches, and you hate peaches.
I do. I do not like them. I do like them one way that we can't talk about. Splendid.
Oh,
We'll just
Adam.
leave that one there.
Oh my god.
I called my brother because
Sorry. I had a tickle.
something itching down here in the leg of my boot,
Yeah.
in my boot leg.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Did you happen to walk out to see the moon shining last night?
I did.
It was so bright.
it was beautiful. Full glass moon shining.
Yeah. Anyway,
But I had to call my brother
okay.
because he still lives in the city.
Yeah.
And he's moving out this weekend, actually.
Yep.
And
You gotta watch the kids.
gotta watch the kids.
You're babysitting.
I know. He did figure out a clever way around that one. He got my mom to come out and take the kids, so I
did he
still
really?
have to move. So
So you.
So I'm back in.
You're back doing physical
Yeah.
labor.
Yeah. The only good thing is, I mean, he's got like 1,000 square foot barndominium, so it's not like it's going to take.
It's not a lot of stuff.
It's either put it in the house or burn it. I don't know what other options. But I call him.
Consignment.
Yeah, and I say, hey, I'm going to send you a Dropbox file. It was 100 gigs. I was like, it told me it was going to take me a week. Can you download this for me? And he's like, yeah. Punk sends me a video. How long do you think it said had remaining?
I already know the answer.
Yeah.
30 minutes.
It was flying. It was actually taking flight. His computer was levitating. It was beautiful. And I just remembered what I'd left. And
Hurt, didn't it?
it hurt. It hurt really bad. But it's coming back. It's coming back.
We'll see, buddy. We'll see. I mean, there's lots of things that have been said. You know, everybody thought by 2021 we'd be in flying cars, but guess what? We still got Cadillac
They do.
converters on the ground, buddy.
They do, and they have them drone things now. Have you seen those? Those
What?
drone taxis? You don't see the drone taxis?
No.
Yeah, drone taxis.
Where is this at?
They're on the coasts, and they're like the company that DJI, the same company that makes our drone, they also are partnered with this company to make drone taxis, and they have in LA, for example, instead of it taking 6 hours or whatever ridiculous amount of time it takes you to get from one side of town to the other, they'll have these designated areas where you go, you can take this drone taxi from here to here, and it takes like 30 minutes. Or they can go from like the Bay Area down to LA, back and forth. It's wild. I saw a YouTube video on it. Same thing with like the self-driving cars and stuff. It's the way of the future. Name the movie.
It's the way of the future.
It's the way of the future.
I don't know.
Okay, we'll see if anybody can guess it.
It's the way of the
It's the way
future.
of the future. It's the way of the future.
Secondhand Lions.
It's the way of the future. No,
What do you think about secondhand? I don't know. That was one of my guess. What do you think about secondhand Lions?
it's all right.
All right.
It's all right.
You didn't think it was great? What about that scene where he beats up all those teenage boys in that little bar? Oh, man.
It's pretty good. It's a pretty good movie.
What do you give it?
I give
Scale
it
of 10.
a 6.
All
Give it a
right.
6.
Nah, I'm okay with
I'm
that.
entertained. I'm entertained plus.
Yeah.
5 is
Yeah. Okay.
a 5 is yeah.
But once again, we're gonna have to have Paul back because we just scratched the surface. That dude, and you can just immediately hear. I mean, he was saying it was 2002. It wasn't 2002 when he killed 34. It would have been around like 98, 99 probably. When he 97, 98, 99 when he killed him, and that buck was a legend. in Roger Mills County. A legend. Like, he showed himself to people, you know,
when he wanted to.
It was like he was playing a game. It was almost like the Unabomber.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like, he would leave little notes and hints.
He had the glasses and everything.
Oh, dude, he just, like, he played this game with everybody. He let people see him, but he wouldn't let you kill him. You know what I mean?
Uh-huh.
And so he was like, I mean, he was like, 34 was the Unabomber.
He was.
You know what I mean? And Paul took him out. Paul killed him. I mean,
I don't doubt that. Just, I mean, I haven't known Paul for, 5 years, I guess, since I've been involved with the show, 5-6 years. And I've seen him kill. Just every time we see his footage, I'm like, what?
Yeah, you did that. You did that today.
I did that today
when you saw the OD.
I was just like,
the OD.
God dang, man.
We got to have Paul back on to talk about OD.
Oh, yeah.
And 59.
59.
59 is a 196-inch whitetail that he killed, sitting on the ground.
Unreal. Yeah.
Not in a blind, leaned up against a tree, shot him at like 17 yards with his bow.
Unreal.
And then OD, which is going to be, that story is going to be told in one of our episodes coming up. Unbelievable deer, giant. I mean, he says the biggest frame deer of my life. And Paul's killed a 196 on the show.
Mm-hmm. So what does that tell you?
And this deer's not going to score as much as 59 because he doesn't have, it's not a 5x9.
No.
But by frame, unbelievable.
Mm-hmm.
Like world-class deer.
Mm-hmm.
But Paul talked about, 34 scored in the 150s as a 7-pointer.
Yeah.
And he was a legend, and Paul killed him. And that's why I asked Paul to be on the show, is because Paul is just a big buck killer. There's some people that have it.
Mm-hmm. I
don't. And I hate that because this is what I do for a living, dude. I mean, there's some nice deer in here. There's a 163 whitetail. I've killed 89-inch muley. I've killed a 174 muley. I mean, these are nice deer. But you know what? That one's the only one that would even get Paul's attention, that 160 something. And I'm not sure Paul would have killed him. Mm-hmm. Because you heard him say, we don't kill.
We kill big boy bucks, is what he said.
Yeah, grown men bucks.
Grown men.
That's what he said, grown men bucks.
Yeah.
I was insulted.
I
was insulted in that moment when he was talking about how, and during the interviews, he says, we hunt grown man bucks. And I'm like, well, what am I hunting, Paul?
Trash.
You know what I mean?
You're out there hunting babies, infants.
I'm hunting a bunch of 14-year-olds.
Yeah.
He's out there hunting 45-year-old grown men.
Yeah.
Deer, and I'm hunting, 13-year-olds who, haven't decided to put on deodorant yet consistently. You know what I mean? That's what he made me feel like. He's talking about it. He's out there, and he does. He kills big deer. He's one of those guys that just has a knack for it that you could sit and learn from him. One thing that stuck out to me when he was talking about 34, he was, I could smell him coming.
Yeah,
did you hear that?
You can smell a buck and rut. You know what's happening.
Yeah,
I'm like,
I can smell it.
Yeah, I know.
I can smell it.
So. Yeah, sure.
This doesn't work as good as Paul's.
No.
You know what I mean? I mean, I can smell a buck, but he's
got
to
be
be
smelled him.
Me.
He'd probably get you Gaggy coming in.
Well, that's true. And Gaggy starts showing up. But I mean, I got to be pretty close to a buck to smell him.
Yeah.
Paul's sitting on the ground going, I could smell him coming. I knew he was coming because I could smell him.
He's a quarter mile out.
Yeah. Yeah, exactly. He's just one of those guys, dude, that is just another level.
Oh, yeah.
When it comes to hunting and successfully killing big deer. He does it consistently. And so, props to him. We need to have him back because he has so many more stories to tell.
Yeah.
So many more stories. We scratched the surface. And so I know we only had 30 minutes with him. But great guy. He's works for an orthopedic surgeon. He's a PA. So he gets to see like knee joints every day, the inside of them.
Yeah, I'm okay skipping on that.
Yeah.
I'm okay.
That's what he does. His wife is a coach, basketball coach. They are both very athletic. Paul's an incredible basketball player in high school at Radin. Took Radin to the state tournament in basketball. The dude could straight up ball in basketball. Very competitive. And that bleeds over. Once you get out of doing athletics, I always say that one of the things that attracts me to deer hunting is the competitive side of it because I'm a competitive person too.
Yeah. And
it allows that to continue on for me. And for Paul, I think that played a role in it too, is that he allowed that to continue to be a part of what he does, because he's an athlete. Mm-hmm. And so anyway, but his wife's gotten into hunting. We want to have JC on as well. JC has a great story about how she got into hunting and why she got into hunting. And so we want to have her on sometime as well to be able to kind of share about that, and just got to have him back. So there's one thing, too, that you brought up that you made a comment when Paul left to both of us, is that you don't think anybody's going to understand a portion of the podcast.
Yeah. I mean, I think any of our audience from Oklahoma generally, or have spent any time in the country of Oklahoma or Texas maybe.
Okay.
I think they'll be with us. But anybody that's not, anybody from north of Missouri or
the Mason-Dixon
line, anybody that's up there's, it's going to sound like we're all sitting here speaking Creole to each other.
So my wife always says this. She goes, you kind of adapt your accent to whoever you're around.
Well, you change.
You think that about me?
I think everybody does.
Oh, everybody does?
I think
I just do it to a greater extent.
I mean,
and so what happened here is it turned into
definitely do.
Well, it's just turned in for me and Paul, like
you went home.
It was on a whim. Like this podcast was a whim.
Yeah.
Am I right?
Very whim.
Very whim. Like we shot interviews and Paul's like, hey, you want to shoot a podcast real quick?
Yeah.
And I'm like, yeah, sure, let's do it. We sat down. We had no idea what we were talking about.
No.
It just started. And me and Paul just start telling stories.
Yeah.
About growing up together as kids.
Yeah.
And hunting big deer and all that stuff that he does.
Yeah.
But there was a moment there. I agree with you. It got pretty twangy.
It got super twangy when the hook in the head part of the story, like it went full there, and I went, we lost half our audience just now because
they can't understand.
They can't understand the word we're
saying.
Got a dib goddamn do it,
got a dib da.
Yeah. It's singing Cotton Eye Joe over here is what we're doing.
Yeah. It got a little.
Yeah.
It got full on. A little twangy.
It got full on.
Went full Roger Mills.
Full Roger Mills County.
Went full Roger Mills County.
What's the thing like one of the earliest podcasts? What's the tip of the tongue?
It was that's not a thing.
That's a Roger Mills County thing.
Yeah, it is. It's the old tip of the tongue.
The old tip of the tongue.
We went tip of the tongue today.
The tips of the tongues were really going.
I forgot about the tip of the tongue.
The tip of the tongue. That's a Roger Mills County colloquialism. Got the word in again.
You continue.
I'm on a roll.
You know what? This is also an educational podcast.
It is.
We're really just doing people favors.
We are. You're welcome.
Yeah. So anyway, we'll have him back on. We want to have JC on, so we got to line that up to make that happen. Mm-hmm. We need I love having people in studio.
Studio is definitely fun. I do think. I mean, how's our round table fund? Did that happen yet?
We got to post a.
We got to post it.
We got to post a link.
Got to post a link to the Venmo round table.
Yep.
Challenge.
I've got tablecloths.
I know.
It wouldn't be hard.
It wouldn't be hard. It wouldn't be hard.
It wouldn't be hard. It wouldn't be hard.
Nah.
Yeah, that would be great because it is a little bit tough. Just kind of because we do, if you do multiple of these in a day, and it gets a little bit tough.
Well, I mean, you're sitting here. It's like having that spot on the couch watching TV that you don't want to look away, but after an hour show, you're like, oh my neck.
My neck's sore.
Somebody come over here and pop me. I can't feel my neck.
No, I can see that. I see where you're coming from.
I mean, if we're gonna have 700 downloads, I think we ought to get a round table. That way we can all look at each other and have a discussion like civilized humans.
Okay.
Instead of all sitting on Last Supper style over here.
That is an awkward picture.
Let's
all think about
sit
the old Last Supper. Why is everybody on the same side of the table?
How else you can take a photograph?
Yeah, it took a long time for somebody to paint that while you sat there and ate.
Yeah.
It was a long. They say the Last Supper because it lasted a long time.
That's why Judas did it. He was ticked.
Oh my God.
A little heresy with the podcast. All right, the podcast is complete. We've officially hit all the things. We've talked in tongues. We've done some heresy.
We talked about food.
Talked about food. Do we do car? We did the square body. We talked about the square body in there a little bit. So I think we
talked about the square body in the actual podcast, did we?
Yeah, we did.
Did we?
We talked about it. We were the hair. I said it's midlife crisis.
Oh yeah, square body. That's right.
So you said you bought a new truck.
I looked like Randy Travis, or not Randy Travis. I looked like Travis Tritt.
That's good.
Looked like Travis Tritt. I mean,
That's
he was
good.
so quick when I walked into that funeral. And I'm preaching the funeral, so man, I got a suit on,
so
dude.
He threw you for it, huh?
I mean, I had a nice sports jacket, not the nicest sport jacket, the nicest article of clothing that I own. My mom bought it for me. Okay?
Yeah.
It's like a $1,200 jacket.
Dang.
I know.
Dang.
I would never buy that for myself. Ever. So it's this super nice sports jacket. I've got on nice pair of jeans, collared shirt, boots,
To the nines.
I'm preaching this funeral, and I walk in, and Paul goes, "Well, God, I didn't know Travis Tritt was doing the service today."
That'll throw a wrench right into the middle
and you
of
know
your
what? From the pulpit, I brought that up. I told everybody in the whole deal that, some of y'all ain't seen me in a while. My hair's a little bit longer, and Paul says I look like Travis Tritt. So I don't have any shame either.
It's fine.
In a lot of ways.
There's no shame.
No shame whatsoever, man.
It's too exhausting. Too exhausting.
I know. I got some great stories though growing up with Paul, so we'll definitely have him back on to talk about it. From a kind of a spiritual aspect, it's really cool how I'm going to tell kind of a cool story about Paul's family, and it's kind of how we'll close things out. We talked about how my mom and dad were close to John and Kay, Paul's mom and dad. And my dad was a believer. Was very open about that. My dad died in 1989. And Kay, Paul's mom, is a believer, very involved in church. But my mom and Paul's dad were not. They weren't believers. The deal was my mom thought she was. She grew up going to the Catholic Church, and she felt like she was a believer, but I knew by the fruit of her life that she wasn't. And when I became a Christian as a sophomore in high school, I knew that my mom wasn't.
Mm-hmm.
And really got passionate about trying to share the gospel with my mom. And I'd go home and talk to her, and I'd learn stuff in youth ministry about Bible studies and things that I could talk about, sharing the gospel. And nothing seemed to work because my mom was like, "Oh, I'm good. I'm good. I went through confirmation. I know, but I knew by the fruit of her life, it wasn't true." And I remember my youth minister, Steve Bullard, said the number one way to witness is the way you live your life. People need to see Jesus in you.
Mm-hmm.
And man, I tried to do that the best I could. And I wasn't perfect, but I did the best I could. And I actually, 3 years after I started that process, after I became a Christian, I got to lead my mom to the Lord.
Mm-hmm.
I got to baptize my mom. And but my mom didn't get plugged into church. She didn't have any discipleship. Well, when my stepdad passed away, my mom moved in with us 5 years ago. And we go to, that's what we do. We go to church. Like every time the doors are open, we're there, and that's something that we're pretty passionate about. And so it meant my mom had to do the same thing. And dude, my mom just like leaps and bounds, starts growing in her faith. It's like incredible. Anyway, just got really passionate about it. And last year, our church did a theme called Who's Your One? Who's that one person in your life you want to see come to know the Lord?
Mm-hmm.
And you know who my mom's one was? John Powers.
There you go.
It was Paul's dad. Paul's a believer. Paul goes to church. Him and his family are real involved in their church. But, John is pretty open about not being a believer. And so my mom wrote John a letter. And she says, man, my mom was rough, dude. Like, when I was, like, in 1989, 1990, that time, through the 80s, my mom, ran, if you'd drawn blood out of her, it would have just been Michelob Ultra. All right? They'd be like, wow, this, it's straight Michelob.
Just empty that into the gas tank.
Yeah, it would just go. Like, my mom, that's the life that she lived. She drank, she partied, she fist fought. She did all this, but she was a school teacher. So that's the thing about my mom. My mom ordered everything out of the Spiegel catalog. All right? Like, my mom dressed, she looked like $1 million, but my mom would throw hands, bro.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like, I wasn't kidding when I talked about my mom, which that's for another time. We'll talk about in depth of my mom in another podcast. I got great stories.
Yeah.
But anyway, she said, John, you know me and who I was. And she says, but here's who I am today because of the Lord. And so she laid out the gospel in this letter to John. He never responded to it. Never called, didn't write her back, nothing. Well, March rolls around, And they bring up kind of talking about this theme, kind of coming to the end. Was you able to see your one come to know the Lord? And my mom said, I'm going to write John another letter because he didn't respond to me. And I really haven't spoke to him since. Well, she didn't get a chance to write that letter. On April 1st, she died. And her wish always was, she says, I want to be cremated, and I want part of my ashes to go to John Powers. And I want you to take some of those ashes, and I want you to go and scatter them on a softball field in western Oklahoma. She says some of the best times of my life were playing softball out there. So I'm sitting in the funeral home next day after my mom dies, and they're talking about, what are you going to do with the remains? And so doing cremation, is it all in one? And so I was like, man, I need to ask John if he's okay with this. So I call him from the funeral home. And John's like, man, I'd be honored to do that, all this stuff. Yes, of course. And then John changes the subject, and he goes, Brad, did you know your mom wrote me a letter? And I said, yeah, John, I know. She wrote you a letter. And he said, I hate that I didn't respond to her, because that letter really touched me. It really moved me. And he ended up telling me something that was really cool. He said, you probably don't know this. He goes, but right about 1987, 88, I was in the pickup with your dad. And he goes, your dad told me about how I need to get my life right with Jesus. And he said, your dad presented the whole thing to me. And he goes, I wasn't ready. It's hard for me to believe in that. And I told him that. And, but your dad laid it out to me. And, I just, in one ear, out the other kind of a thing. He says, but man, with your mom passing suddenly, because my mom died in the passenger seat of our car going down the road.
Light switch, man.
1 minute laughing, talking, the next she's dead, gone. And he said that really affected me. And he said, man, I'm ready to get my life right with the Lord. So in the funeral home, I'm crying. I lay it out, and John accepts the Lord. And I said, I tell you what, he said, after we go through the whole process, kind of thing, talking about it, he said, Brad, would you baptize me? And I said, yeah, I would. He said, I don't want it to be any big deal. I don't want none of that. He said, but I want you to baptize me in the creek on our family's property. And I said, I'd be honored. And I said, so I'll tell you what we're going to do. We haven't done it yet. We need to do it soon. I said, well, let's just make a day of it. I said, I'm going to come baptize you. And I said, and he said, I hate your mom can't be there to see it. And I said, she will be.
Oh, yeah.
I'm going to bring those ashes with me. I'm going to baptize you, and then I want to go with you, and we're going to ride, and we're going to go dump those ashes out on a softball field in western Oklahoma.
Yeah. And
he says, all right, sounds like a plan. Isn't that incredible?
That's an amazing story.
Incredible how full circle things come. Like me and Paul talking about all these kid stories and how we grew up together, how the Lord got a hold of my mom. And she reached back into her past to somebody that she cared about, knew didn't know the Lord. And that's who God put on her heart. Through my mom's death, we see John's salvation. Isn't that incredible, man?
It's just unreal.
It's unbelievable.
The wild mysteries that God, how he works, is unfathomable. You never would have guessed.
God never stops chasing us, and he never stops pursuing us.
No.
And he goes to great lengths to see us come to him.
And that's maybe, if you are listening to this podcast right now, none of this is an accident.
That's right. We don't believe in accidents. It's all divine appointments.
We only believe in God's timing.
That's right. So
and
maybe you're listening today and saying, I don't have a relationship with the Lord. I've never given my life to him. And life is fragile.
It is excruciatingly fragile.
I've lost three parents. I buried my dad, my stepdad, my mom. And life is fragile. And the Bible tells us when this life is over, there's two destinations. For those that know Jesus, we get to go to heaven. For those that don't know him as their Savior, they go to hell. I don't say that because it's, to scare you. I say it because it's the truth.
Yeah.
And so maybe you're listening to this podcast today and you're going, I don't know the Lord. I can tell you a lot about him, but I've never surrendered my life to him. Maybe that needs to happen today. You can find us going to finaldescentoutdoors.com. You can send me an email. I read all the emails. They come to me. They don't come to somebody else. We ain't that big time of an operation. I know you look at the operation of this podcast and you think, that is big time.
That is on another level.
Look at those cats.
Look at that. Look at that $89 mixer.
But you may look at this and think, man, but I read all the emails. Man, you can email me. I would love to visit with you about beginning a relationship with Jesus. You can find us on Facebook, Instagram, find us on Twitter. You can message me on TikTok, _Final Descent. However you want to get a hold of us, we would love to visit with you about beginning a relationship with Jesus. Because I tell you what, killing big bucks ain't what's going to matter in the end of this, right, buddy?
No, it ain't why we do this.
No.
The hunting's fun and everything,
yeah.
but watching people come to know the Jesus and change their life and live in that security that's found in knowing.
And we appreciate the feedback off our podcast. We've gotten feedback off our podcast of people talking about being encouraged and how I've been to church and forever came across your podcast, started listening. I'm going to church now.
Yeah.
I'm plugged back in. That's what does it for us.
It is.
Yeah.
That's the reason why we do all of it.
That's right. So if we could help you in your walk with the Lord, we'd love to do that. Send us a message. Let us know how we can be praying for you, encouraging you.
Yeah.
Any of that. Adam, how can people find you, buddy?
You guys can find me on the interwebs at Hurley Films. It's HEARLYFILMS. Got a YouTube channel we post to regularly, and then once in a blue moon, I'll post something on Facebook.
Every once in a while. You can find me at on Facebook. You can find Final Descent Outdoors. I've also started a fan page on Facebook. The most arrogant thing I've ever done.
Yeah.
You can follow.
I was going to confront you about it on the podcast.
I know, and here's the I took me forever to do it, but I reached 5,000 friends, and then I have to go back and delete people, and people just request me through the show, and I feel bad, and so I just started a Brad Clay page.
Yeah,
that sounds so tool baggish. I hate it.
I'm just glad you said it, not me.
I know. I feel horrible about it. I got text messages be like, well,
oh,
Mr. It's just a way for me to connect to people because I can't accept everybody. So, but if you find Brad Clay on Facebook, you can.
Who can accept everybody?
Jesus,
our Lord and Savior Jesus.
Oh my gosh, the Jesus juke.
Was that just a little bit?
Yeah, his Facebook page has more than 5,000
Wilson. That was full on.
That's true. That was good. That should be on their sign out front.
I know.
On the old marquee.
Baptist.
The old marquee.
Oh, yeah.
Anyway, you can find Final Descent Outdoors on Facebook. We're on Instagram and Twitter at FD Outdoors. And on TikTok at Brad Clay _Final Descent. So thanks so much for watching today's podcast. We'll have Paul back. We'll talk more big buck stories. Adam, I appreciate you too, buddy.
We kind of like each other.
We'll dive in a little bit more into the old Brad Clay Facebook page.
Oh yeah, we need
the
to
next podcast.
We really need to talk about this.
We do. See you next time.